The son of sharecroppers, Lewis became an original freedom rider. He was badly beaten several times for his many efforts to end segregation. When I was at ABC News in 2011, I spoke with Lewis about being inspired to pursue his friend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream.
And I would ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, why segregation? Why racial discrimination? And they would say, that's the way it is. Don't you get in the way, don't you get in trouble.
Really? They were worried about you?
They were very troubled about what could happen. And, but Dr. King inspired me.
Joining us now, a friend of the late Congressman, the House Majority Whip, Democratic Congressman from South Carolina, Jim Clyburn. Mr. Clyburn, Congressman Clyburn, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry loss of this dear friend of yours. I know you've been friends with him since 1960. When was the last time you spoke with him? Tell us about that conversation.
I spoke with John last Saturday. We talked on the phone. We expressed love for each other. We talked about his illness some time ago. We knew that it would come to this, didn't know which day. So last Saturday, when all kinds of rumors were floating around, I called him, and we talked. And it was a pleasant conversation. I ended up telling him to just stop talking that I would talk and just conserve his energy. It's a pleasant conversation.
Lewis was obviously a towering, almost larger-than-life individual in terms of his dignity, his courage. Your relationship with him, as I noted, stretches back to October 1960, when you were both organizing protests during the Civil Rights Movement, such an important movement. Tell us about those days and about how your friendship persevered for so long.
Well, it had a lot to do with the common cause that we found in challenging the status quo. John Lewis and I met not long after the sit-in up in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was February 1, 1960. And we were on the campus at Shaw University together in the spring of that year. Though I did not meet John then. The following October, on the campus of Morehouse College, we did meet. And at that night, if you recall, there were some challenges going on, some conflicts between students and SCLC, Martin Luther King Jr. Because up to that point, Martin Luther King Jr. Had been advocating going to jail, but he had never been to jail. And it was that weekend that that conversation took place. We went into a meeting around 10 o'clock in the evening, and we didn't come out of that room until 4 o'clock the next morning. I was transformed in that 5 or 6 hours. I've never been the same since. And John and I went on to meet our spouses in the movement. He met Lillian, and they got married. I met Emily in jail. We got married. They were both librarians, and they became great friends. And some of my fondest memories was listening to Emily and at least her end of the conversation with Lillian. And when sometimes they expressed their disagreements with how we were conducting ourselves. So John and I got to be fast friends, and it was sealed because our wives became such good friends.
It's doubly a tragedy that his death happens at this time in our history because because of the pandemic, he is not going to get the kind of send-off that previous leaders of his stature have been able to be given in terms of mass crowds, mass funeral attendance and such, but also because of who the president is and his reluctance to fully understand the greatness of Mr. Lewis. After a delay, President Trump did send out a short tweet Saturday afternoon saying that he was, quote, saddened to hear of John Lewis's death, calling him a civil rights hero. Are you satisfied with that response? What would you like to see from President Trump? What's the best way President Trump could honor John Lewis?
The best way he could honor John Lewis is to go to the media and say to the country that we have a roadmap given to us by the Supreme Court in the Roberts decision 7 years ago in Shelby v. Holder. The Supreme Court gutted the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and it said in that decision that these are some things you could do to reauthorize this act. The House of Representatives has passed that. I think that Trump and the Senate leadership, Mitch McConnell, by their deeds, if they so celebrate the heroism of this man, then let's go to work and pass that bill, because it's laid out the way the Supreme Court asked us to lay it out. And if the president were to sign that, then I think that's what we would do to honor John. It should be the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act of 2020. That's the way to do it. Words may be powerful, but deeds are lasting.
It's a great loss for the nation, and I know a great loss for you personally. Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina, thank you so much for your time, and again, our deepest condolences on the loss of your friend.
Thank you very much for having me.
Fareed Zakaria starts next.
95 cents for years.
There, how? What?
Committee in October 2019 and awaits actions from our colleagues in the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Things like healthcare are also on that list.
A single dollar and get real journalism delivered straight.
People from a region, and it should be noted that Florida is only about 100 miles south of us on busy I-95. So people are coming back and forth between Florida, Georgia, into Savannah, enjoying Savannah, and it's just a little bit of time before our hospitals are overwhelmed. We must protect our healthcare heroes. We must protect our healthcare systems.
Absolutely, Savannah Mayor Van Johnson, you keep taking care of your citizens. Thank you so much for your time with us. If President Trump expected an easy interview with Fox News, he got quite a surprise. He also generated new alarm over his comments about the election.
On SDPB TV.
Was proven to help you fall asleep 100 and
the president discussing several other key issues in that interview, talking at length about the coronavirus pandemic and touting his response so far. David Spunt is at the White House with more. David.
Hi, Lisa. Good afternoon. Some medical experts would disagree, but President Trump said the reason that the COVID testing numbers are up is because more tests are being done. That's why the infection rates are up. He says there are many more tests that took place now than we saw just a few months ago in March. Listen.
Testing is up 37%.
well, that's good.
I understand. Cases are up 194%. It isn't just that testing has gone up, it's that the virus has spread. The positivity rate has increased.
Many of those
is worse than it was.
Many of those cases are young people that would heal in a day.
And Alicia, it's those young people that will go to school in about a month. Millions of kids and parents are anxious about how they will handle that return to the classroom. The president wants to open schools despite concerns from parents and doctors. When asked about being a gracious loser if former Vice President Joe Biden wins in November, the president said this, listen.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
Okay, so the president has been talking about mail-in voting. He's used the word rigged, talking about a potential rigged election. This is not new rhetoric. He said this over the past few months, but it's important to point out that the president and some of his other staff members, they vote by mail. He said it's a little bit different because he lives out of state. He's the president of the United States. His concern is with people voting that just don't want to go to the polls. But Alicia and Leland, as we get closer to November and the numbers rise with COVID-19, a lot of people are not going to feel safe going to the polls. It's a question of if the polls will even be open. So, of course, we're going to watch that story as that progresses. Leland.
Good bet they're going to make it 53 tonight. Okay, thank you so much, Aaron McLaughlin there in Portland. We also want to let you know we'll be speaking with Clint Watts later on this hour. He is a MSNBC national security analyst about everything that Aaron was just outlining there. We have some more breaking news to share. The president once again threatening to withhold funding from schools if they do not open in the fall. And as more officials impose face mask mandates, President Trump is vowing to do the opposite.
Well, I want people to have a certain freedom. And I don't believe in that, no. And I don't agree with the statement that if everybody wear a mask, everything disappears. Everybody was saying don't wear a mask. All of a sudden, everybody's got to wear a mask. And as you know, masks cause problems too. With that being said, I'm a believer in masks. I think masks are good. But I leave it up to the governors. I do say this. Schools have to open. Young people have to go to school. And there's problems when you don't go to school, too. And there's going to be a funding problem because we're not going to fund, when they don't open their schools, we're not going to fund them. We're not going to give them money not going to school.
My colleague NBC's Josh Letterman, he's joining me again from the White House. Josh, I mean, as we listen to this, what
decline in federal investment in science and technology since its heyday in the 1950s and 60s. Those investments led to the personal computer, the internet, the global positioning system, and a host of other technologies that have transformed the economy. More recently, it's worth remembering an Energy Department loan of $465 million is what enabled Tesla to establish itself and experiment with electric cars. The Biden plan proposes investments in 5G technology, electric cars, lightweight materials, and artificial intelligence. Some of this money will be wasted, as also happens to investments from venture capital firms. But all you need is for some, like Tesla, to succeed big. The plan also has a $400 billion Buy American component. The theory behind this is sensible. The danger of this kind of approach, however, is it can too often become industrial policy, with the government trying to revive bygone industries like steel, as Biden apparently wants to do. And it often favors firms with the best lobbyists, not the best ideas. More generally, the track record of most rich countries in practicing this kind of industrial policy has been pretty bad. Experts used to point to Japan as the country that had mastered government-directed investment, except that it turned out Japan's best companies all came out of its fiercely competitive private sector. The state-sponsored ones mostly did poorly. China is different, by the way, because its biggest advantage is not smart government investments, but low wages. The best model is not for the government,
but riot when they see you all. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely devoid of all truth. It's actually a lie. And let me give you a couple of facts of why I can say that so definitively. One is we had, first of all, the acts of violence that was going on way before federal personnel arrived there, Leland. In addition to that, we had credible, reliable information that these criminals were going to attack the federal building, specifically the Hatfield building. And guess what? They did. They brought weapons to what is supposed to be a protest. Bats, hammers, projectiles filled with feces and water bottles frozen, and the list goes on, with the willful and specific intent to destroy federal buildings and harm federal officers. I do not believe anybody in this country believes that our presence is what's causing this violence. He's absolutely on the wrong side of this.
The mayor there is saying that
get some spruce gum.
More July 19th news.
Wild leaks.
And from Oyate today,
that stuff
PBS.
Keeps me sane.
It's not easy. It gets depressing. I notice the statistics, someone sends them to me usually between 6 and 9 p.m. and I find myself getting a little edgy, wondering how many new cases there are, wondering how many more people have died, wondering if this is the day the curve's going to flatten. So far it's just gone up and up. I guess my husband's here at home. He's a teacher, so he's working from home too. So we kind of, cheer each other up and go for walks with the dogs and anything we can do to kind of keep our spirits up. And I don't know if you've been to the Navajo Nation, but it's a gorgeous place. And all you have to do is just walk outside, and you're overwhelmed by the beauty of the Red Rock country and nature and spring coming. So I guess that's what's kept my spirits up, is just going out in nature and seeing, it's still all there. All the beauty is still all there, and it will survive this pandemic. It will survive this generation, and it'll survive humanity.
I see this as a worldwide spiritual awakening, and the quarantine as a way of fasting. It's a time for fasting. So what I do is I look at it through a cultural lens, and I look at what is the message here, what is going on, like that. And also, our prophecies have predicted everything that has ever happened to the Anishinaabe people. Like the Mishomis book, for example, in Eddie Benton's he talks about the 7 fires prophecies, and then this new age that we're in, this new time, this evolutionary time that we're in. That's where that book ended, and that's why we need to pick it up and figure out what is next in the pandemic. So, I have 35 years of sobriety, and in my 35 years, I tell people in our programs that it is a spiritual awakening, and people that are in recovery, they know that it has to be darkest before the dawn. So everything has to get bad before it can get better. So when people are quarantined, they're kind of forced to look at themselves, and they're forced to evaluate and reevaluate themselves. And then how did I contribute to all of this? Whenever we can take ownership for what's going on in the world, we can make changes. But if we blame other people, we can't make changes. So in the recovery circles, I've been talking a lot about this, and been doing a lot of research in terms of prayer, meditation, reading books, looking at movies, listening to the wind, and just listening to the quiet voice of the Creator that Eddie Benton says that speaks not to the ear but to the soul, and just listening for those messages. I've always believed that the Creator speaks to all of us all the time. It's just that we don't all know how to listen. So now that we're quarantined, is the time to teach ourselves how to listen. Like, what is the message, and what is my role in all of this, and what can we do about it?
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors from across Indian country. I'm Michael Lagarde. Join us again for Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer.
In his teen years, lots of people were saying they expected Bill Clinton to be president someday.
They hated his guts, and they would go to the end of the earth to destroy him. What a squandering of talent and possibility.
Tonight has made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
A definitive look at the man and the president. Clinton on American Experience.
Tuesday at 7, 6 Mountain on SDPB TV.
They are the essential workers.
I started getting lightheaded, my chest starting to hurt. I couldn't really breathe.
In the factories and farms.
They're more exposed to other people. A lot of them do in fact live in fear.
Producing America's food supply.
Co-worker showed up to work and she was coughing. She was threatened with her job if she didn't show up to work.
Frontline investigates.
It doesn't feel like we're essential. It feels like we're slaves.
Tuesday at 9, 8 Mountain on SDPB TV.
I was raised to believe that I control my own happiness.
That we're supposed to help each other.
That there's nothing in the world that I can't do.
I was raised to believe
that the world is a good place.
As long as I work hard and put the effort forward, I can do anything. I'm an amputee, I have one hand. My parents drive me to work hard, and as long as I put my best foot forward, I'll succeed.
Wouldn't it be incredible if we could see the world from an animal's point of view?
In this series, that is exactly what we're going to do, with the help of the animals themselves. They're going to take us to places that a cameraman like me cannot go.
This is their footage, their story, and we're going to see it through their eyes.
Wednesday at 7, 6 Mountain on SDPB TV.
We're the Mestricks, and we have a 5-year-old son named Landon. Landon chose PBS more than us choosing it for him.
PBS had a special on Pearl Harbor, and once he started watching the show about the
areas, we're doing great, but we have a surge in certain areas. But you don't hear people complaining about ventilators. We've got all the ventilators we can use. We're supplying them to other countries. We go out into parking lots and everything. Everybody gets a test. We find if we did half the testing, with all of that being said, I'm glad we did it. This is the right way to do it. I'm glad we did what we're doing. But we have more tests by far than any country in the world.
But sir, testing is up 37%.
Well, that's good.
I understand. Cases are up 194%. It isn't just that testing has gone up, it's that the virus has spread. The positivity rate has increased.
Many of those
is worse than it was.
Many of those cases are young people that would heal in a day. They have the sniffles and we put it down as a test. Many of them, don't forget, I guess it's like 99.7%. People are going to get better, and in many cases they're going to get better very quickly. We go out and we look, and then on the news, look, if you go back to the news, all of even your wonderful competitors, you'll see cases are up. Well, cases are up. Many of those cases shouldn't even be cases. Cases are up because we have the best testing in the world, and we have the most testing. No country has ever done what we've done in terms of testing. We are the envy of the world, they call, and they say the most incredible job anybody's done is our job on testing. Because we're going to very shortly be up to 50 million tests. You look at other countries, they don't even do tests. They do tests if somebody walks into the hospital, they're sick, they're really sick, they test them then, or they'll test them in a doctor's office. But they don't go around and have massive areas of testing, and we do. And I'm glad we do, but it really skews the numbers.
I'm going to do you a favor, because I'm sure a lot of people listening right now are going to say, Trump, he tries to play it down. He tries to make it not seem as serious as it is.
No, this is very serious.
75,000 cases a day.
Show me the death chart.
Well, I don't have the death chart.
Well, the death chart is much more important.
The death chart is 1,000 cases a day.
Excuse me. It's all too much. It shouldn't be one case. It came from China. They should have never let it escape. They should have never let it out. But it is what it is. Take a look at Europe. Take a look at the numbers in Europe. And by the way, they're having surges.
Are 6,000 in the whole European Union.
They don't test. They don't test like we test.
Is it possible that they don't have the virus as badly as we do?
No, it's possible that they don't test. That's what's possible. We find cases, and many of those cases heal automatically. We're finding, in a way, we're creating trouble. Certainly we're creating trouble for the fake news to come along and say, oh, we have more cases. Look, we did something that nobody's ever done. Not only the ventilators, where we're supplying them all over the world. We did a testing program, the likes of which nobody's ever done before.
The head of the CDC, Dr. Redfield, said this on Tuesday.
I do think the fall and the winter of 2020 and 2021 are going to be probably one of the most difficult times that we've experienced in American public health.
Do you agree with Dr. Redfield?
I don't know, and I don't think he knows. I don't think anybody knows with this. This is a very tricky deal. Everybody thought the summer it would go away and it would come back in the fall. Well, in the summer it came. They used to say the heat was good for it and it really knocks it out, remember? And then it might come back in the fall. So they got that one wrong. They got a lot wrong. They got a lot wrong. The World Health got a tremendous amount wrong. They basically did whatever China wanted them to. And we'll save now almost $500 million a year, which is nice. But the World Health got a lot wrong.
But this is one of the sharpest criticisms of you.
I agree.
People say that you talk about the world as you'd like to see it rather than follow the signs.
No,
Well, let me just ask the question, sir. Why on earth would your administration be involved in a campaign at this point to discredit Dr. Fauci, who is the nation's top infectious disease expert?
Because we're not. If one man from my administration doesn't like him because he made a few mistakes. Look, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask. Dr. Fauci told me not to ban China. It would be a big mistake. I did it over and above his recommendation. Dr. Fauci then said you saved tens of thousands of lives, more than that. He said you saved tens of thousands of lives. Dr. Fauci's made some mistakes, but I spoke to him yesterday at length. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci.
But sir, this weekend, your White House put out a series of statements, so-called mistakes, that Dr. Fauci had made. One of your closest aides, one of your right-hand men, Daniel Scavino, put out this. Have you seen this?
Well,
this Dr. Fawcett, who shows him as a leaker and an alarmist.
Oh, I don't know that he's a leaker.
Why would
he's a little bit of an alarmist. That's okay. A little bit
He's
of an alarmist.
I'm an alarmist?
A little bit of an alarmist. Let me just say, Dr. Fauci at the beginning, and again, I have a great relationship with him. I spoke to him at length yesterday. Dr. Fauci at the beginning said, this will pass, don't worry about it, this will pass. He was wrong. Dr. Fauci said, don't ban China, don't ban China. I did. He then admitted that I was right.
But you made mistakes too.
I guess everybody makes mistakes.
I was going to say, you said at one point...
It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, that's a pretty good job we've done. I think we're going to be very good with the coronavirus. I think that at some point that's going to sort of just disappear, I hope. I'll be right eventually. I will be right eventually. You know, I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But
it's going to disappear.
Does that discredit
and I'll
you?
be right. I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. You know why it doesn't discredit? Because I've been right probably more than anybody else.
Then there are masks. From the first day that the CDC said that people should wear masks on April 3rd, you said you weren't going to. You wore a mask for the first time in public at Walter Reed this weekend. Question, the CDC says if everybody wore a mask for 4 to 6 weeks, we could get this under control. Do you regret not wearing a mask in public from the start? And will you consider a national mandate that people need to wear masks?
No, I want people to have a certain freedom, and I don't believe in that, no. And I don't agree with the statement that if everybody wear a mask, everything disappears. Hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask. Our Surgeon General, terrific guy, said don't wear a mask. Everybody was saying don't wear a mask. All of a sudden, everybody's got to wear a mask. And as you know, masks cause problems too. With that being said, I'm a believer in masks. I think masks are good. But I leave it up to the governors. Many of the governors are changing. They're more mask into. They like the concept of masks. But some of them don't agree. I do say this. Schools have to open. Young people have to go to school. And there's problems when you don't go to school, too. And there's going to be a funding problem because we're not going to fund, where they don't open their schools, we're not going to fund them. We're not going to give them money if they're not going to school, if they don't open.
2 points on that. First of all, what the federal government gives is 8%.
10%, and you know what? That's a lot of money.
And you're going to take them, you know where the money goes? It goes overwhelmingly to disadvantaged kids and children with disabilities.
Let the schools...
Why wouldn't you send more money so the schools would be safer?
Let the schools open. Did you ever see the statistics on young people below the age of 18? The state of New Jersey had thousands of deaths. Of all of these thousands, one person below the age of 18 in the entire state. One person. And that was a person that had, I believe he said diabetes. One person below the age of 18 died in the state of New Jersey. During all of this, you know, they had a hard time. And they're doing very well now. So that's it.
The stimulus bill is running out the end of this month.
Yeah.
The Republicans say they want liability.
And conquer in just 20 minutes a day. Or have fun dick.
Coverings. Dr. Francis Collins, director of the National Institutes of Health, calls the political divide over masks bizarre.
It's bizarre that we have turned the mask wearing into something political. This is not a war, but it's a certain way it is against the enemy, which is called the virus. And that virus is very sneaky and stealthy. And our best chance is for all of us to get together and do the right thing and stop fighting so much about the divide between different political perspectives, which is just getting in the way.
All right, with us now, Dr. Uche Blackstock. She's a Yahoo News medical contributor and the founder and CEO of Advancing Health Equity. Thanks for being with us, Doctor. You know, another thing that he did say during that interview was that he was concentrating on certain groups across the country to try to get more awareness. And as you saw there, bring up the issue of politicization of wearing masks or not. What's the best way to talk about that to mayors on the ground, like we were just talking about, to get the message across about face masks?
That's such a great question. I think that, we have the evidence that universal masking works. And I think that the best approach is to use a collective response. We've seen how well other countries with populations as large as the United States have been able to mitigate the spread of virus by wearing masks. And so I think that we need to, just spread that the collective response is what's the most important way to get this virus under control.
As you look forward to the interview that we were talking about earlier with President Trump, once again, he was criticizing Dr. Anthony Fauci. I want to play that, and then I want to get your response.
Look, Dr. Fauci said, don't wear a mask. Dr. Fauci told me not to ban China. It would be a big mistake. I did it over and above his recommendation. Dr. Fauci then said, you saved tens of thousands of lives, more than that. He said, you saved tens of thousands of lives. Dr. Fauci's made some mistakes, but I spoke to him yesterday at length. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci. I don't know that he's a little bit of an alarmist. That's okay. A little bit of an alarmist.
I'm an alarmist?
A little bit of an alarmist. Let me just say, Dr. Fauci at the beginning, and again, I have a great relationship with him. I spoke to him at length yesterday. Dr. Fauci at the beginning said, this will pass, don't worry about it, this will pass. He was wrong. Dr. Fauci said, don't ban China, don't ban China. I did. He then admitted that I was right.
But you made mistakes too.
I guess everybody makes mistakes.
Okay, the question is pretty obvious maybe, and the mayor that was on a little bit earlier was saying he wished he may have had clear direction from up above, right? And in this answer, it doesn't seem like the direction is very clear.
No, it's not clear at all. I mean, first of all, undermining Dr. Fauci, it's a bad decision. Dr. Fauci has a very established track record with multiple presidential administrations. He's been using evidence to make decisions, and we know that science changes daily, especially what we know about this virus. And he's made recommendations based on what we knew at the time. And so, I think that what we need right now is a national strategy to get this virus under control. It feels like, as my sister, who's also a physician, says, we have 50 different countries in the United States doing their own thing, and we need to get it under control.
Yeah, talking about 50 different countries is also the city. So Mayor Holt, his mask mandate, they have some exceptions. I'll just give you a couple. Excusing people inside a public or private school building or facility from wearing a mask unless required.
I haven't all this.
They're doing their best, Fred, to try and control this. I mean, the governor certainly says that the positivity rate here in the state has stabilized. He continues to say that. He's also spreading the good news that 30,000 vials of remdesivir, which treats COVID-19, are on their way to hospitals here in the state of Florida. But as you mentioned, more than 12,000 new cases in the last 24 hours. That is the fourth time since the pandemic started that we have seen the daily case count above 12,000, and all of those days have been in the month of July. I should note that's up from 10,300 new cases as of yesterday, and 89 new deaths. So now we have 4,982 deaths in the state of Florida. The state is seeing a positivity rate of 18.2%, and 9,300 hospitalized at.
Each week. It wasn't personal for me as a young kid. It was, and then that kind of connection. But I mean, my parents were people of faith. Got letters from.
And in the defense of freedom, they said they would cooperate and be known.
Hospital beds left in the state, more than we had in March, so that could be good news.
Setting a police union building on fire, what local leaders are doing to try and keep peace there, and the legal questions now about those unidentified federal forces targeting protesters on the streets.